Like, what do you mean his rectum age is 18 years old? What does that even mean? What does it mean to have an 18-year-old booty hole? And hi, you guys. Today I'll be talking about Bryan Johnson, that wax-looking motherfucker that wants to live forever. There's a documentary about him on Netflix, and where he talks about his whole journey through this basically self-experimentation and about the process of it, his relationships with his family, getting into new relationship with partners, his relationship with his son is a focus as well. Him talking to doctors and specialists, him trying a very, very, very experimental things. We'll get to that. I didn't really write down everything exactly what happened because it's a documentary. A lot of different little insignificant things happen. Like there's throughout the documentary, you see things with him like talking to different YouTubers and interviews and YouTubers doing things that he does to see if they can do it just for fun and just for to talk about it. There is, but there is. It starts off with him going into his room, into like his bathroom. He has a sun lamp, like a fake sun lamp, because he doesn't really go out in the sun much, which is why he's so pale and looks like Edward in Twilight. He looks like he could be a Cullen because of how he looks. Seriously, I'm surprised he doesn't sparkle in the sunlight. Um, then there's a quote. I did write down quotes because there were quotes that I wanted to discuss, where he says, "The genius target for us in the 21st century is to stop destructive behaviors and neutralize aging." Now, I do think that a lot of us tend to fall in doing destructive behaviors. Of course, a lot of us do that. But this in itself, what he's doing in itself, can be very destructive. I think being so obsessed with trying to be the healthiest you can be, and I feel like you're not focused on living your life, being so focused on being as healthy as you can be, having all these little tedious things you have to do every day. And also, well, I'll get to something later. I want to talk about something later when I point this out. But no, I'll point it out now. Basically, there's a part where he says he shuts down his mind basically and lets his body speak for itself, and also uses an algorithm to prepare the stuff that he does, that for the pills that he takes, for the food that he eats. And I just don't, I don't get it. I don't I don't get it. But anyways, so then he says that the gym is his happy place. Everything that he does is measured. Everything is measured. Every everything is measured. How much he exercises, what he eats, how the pills that he takes. He takes a shit ton of fucking pills. Like a shit ton of pills. Then like his muscle mass, weight, how he breathes, his lungs, his heart, I'm pretty sure his heart, his blood, obviously. His blood, his fucking like his poop. Um, typical things that are measured for your health. Then, yeah, like I said, he has his organs to speak for themselves. He doesn't use his mind; he uses the algorithm. Yeah, shit on the pills. Lamp. He drinks different green juice, which is fine. I drink green juice. Green juice is great. It is great for your health. How he works out for an hour every day. Veggies, red light therapy. He also does that. He hearing therapy, which I didn't even know that was a thing. Next thing, so he has this. Okay, so no, I almost got there. I'm not there yet. He says that at the point in this documentary, he ages only 8 months when everyone else ages a year, which is crazy. Then he has like his own philosophy, like this blueprint philosophy that he has. He also has a product called Blueprint where he sells things, which of course is a part of this. Another self-help scam shit. These people are always trying to sell something most of the time. Where he sells like fucking like extra organic olive oil that's like fucking like $37 for a bottle. He sells like I think protein powder thing. I just looked at it not too long ago. I don't remember. Um, I'll probably insert photos. Um, then he uses $2 million a year. $2 million a year. $2 million a year to do this whole situation, this whole experimentation. He uses $2 million a year. That's crazy. $2 million a year. And then he yeah, so then he did like an interview with someone where this is where he first started like getting more known. Because he became a spectacle. That's what I put. He became a spectacle after all this, obviously. Because people were like, this shit is weird. Like, you're spending all this money, you're trying to live forever, you can't do that. and you're doing all this weird shit. You're eating this green slop. Like what? But he does an interview. I can't remember the what the interview was. I wish I would have wrote it down. He did an interview with someone, and it got posted, and it said it's talked about the $2 million a year, and then everyone's like, yeah, this is weird. You see a lot of they show a lot of clips of people commentary, people talking about it, people on a podcast, obviously, because like it's weird. Like, what do you mean his rectum age is 18 years old? What does that even mean? What does it mean to have an 18-year-old booty hole? And I'm serious. That's not even a joke. That's not even a joke. That's not even a joke. Like, I'm serious. That's really what it says in the thing. And I was like, what does that even mean? But anyways, just typical stuff. Typical measurements. You want to become 18 years old? Let's see how your booty hole looks when you're 18. Like, what does that even mean? Okay, so then there's this dude that speaks. There's one of the like scientists, doctor, because they have interviews from different people throughout it. They have his son. They have his assistant, Kate. She helps with him managing his social media and like doing videos for him later on. Because at the end of the doc, his son goes off to college, and he helps uh she helps with his son packing and stuff like that. They have interviews from a journalist. They have interviews from doctors, a scientist, interviews from different people. But there's a scientist that says we watch something like this. I don't think this was exactly what he said, but he said we watch our pets and grandparents die, and we think that it's good because it's natural, which is stupid. It's a stupid line in my opinion because like, what do you mean? We don't think that our loved ones dying is good. Of course, it's sad when your loved ones die, but like it is natural because it's inevitable. It's inevitable that your loved ones die. You know, that's something that everyone has to prepare for. You know what I mean? Like my father passed away. Of course, could have had more time. It was preventable, but it was going to happen inevitably. And I'm not saying that makes it sad. I mean, I'm not saying that makes it less sad. Of course, it's still sad. Obviously, of course, it's very tragic, but it is inevitable, and it's something that you have to prepare for yourself for as you get older. You have to prepare yourself for the fact that it is inevitable that your parents are going to die, and your pets too. As sad as that is, I've had two pets. Two pets I've actually many pets throughout my life, but the first pets that I actually really had a huge connection with, I had two rabbits named Riley and Jack Jack, and they passed away last year as well, and that was very sad for me. I still I miss them every day. But it's something that you have to. It's inevitable. It's part of life, and I had them for 8 years. I tried to give them the best 8 years. Me and my family tried to give them the best 8 years that we could. But anyways, so he has a son Talmadge. His son Talmadge lives with him. He lives with him for he moves to California with him for like what was it 105 days? I see. I should have wrote this down. Professional YouTuber, you guys. 100 and something days. For his senior year of high school. His son. They both were part of the Mormon Church. Bryan grew up in the Mormon Church. His parents were Mormon as well, and he grew up in the Mormon Church. Then he was Mormon, and he married his wife, who was Mormon. They raised their kids Mormon. But then when he left, he divorced his wife, and his son Talmadge, I'm pretty sure is the oldest, decided to leave as well, and that's when he was able to connect with his father, and now they have that connection together. They don't really talk to his ex-wife and his other kids because they're not a part of the community anymore, and it's very isolating. There's also a part where he talks about the food that he eats. He said he only eats 2,000 calories a day, which I think is crazy. I don't think that's enough food, especially because of how much he works out. And he even says that, yeah, he's talking. It's when he's talking to I think it's a YouTuber, somebody interviewing him, making a video with him in some way. Says you must be so hungry, and he says the saddest part of my day is the last bite, and that's very, it's giving soul. Not that it's funny. It's not funny. It's just like it's funny weird. When it's just obvious that there's some disordered eating here, maybe some, you know, and a bit of OCD. And so then he goes into how it felt when he was working before he left Mormonism and decided to go down this journey that he's on right now. Um, he says that he was clearly just dealing with depression and feeling lonely, which is sad because when you're in when you're in any religion, you have usually have some community with the church that you go to. Like with them is the Church of Latter-day Saints. They he had that community and he had his family, but he clearly still felt lonely and depressed and even and he talks about how he had business ventures that he did that failed. Then he was able to expand cash like situations like PayPal and Venmo was able to expand stuff like that and be able to make that successful and work, but he was working himself to death. Like he said, I was working myself to an early grave. He was a workaholic. He wasn't really paying attention to his health. And he said that this is a direct quote. He said, the conscious mind is desperate to hold on to power. And that's something I feel like people that are dealing with mental health struggles understand. And I get it. I get that. I've dealt with mental health struggles. I get wanting to get away from your mind. I understand wanting to get away from yourself. I do get that. Because you can't run away from yourself. You can't run away from your mind. That's why people have like desperate situations where they're desperate to get away from themselves and get away from reality, and why people do drugs, like drink alcohol. People become alcoholics and become drug addicts. That's a part of that. But then he also goes into how, you know, fast food and social media is very addictive and it's not healthy for us, which is true. That is very true. That's a good point. That is a very good point. I'll admit that. That is a good point. Then he said, this is a direct quote, we've lost touch with basic self-care. And I agree. I feel like people don't take care of themselves as much as they should. I feel like I don't think you should do it at the expense of living, you know, but I do think some people don't take care of themselves, especially people that are like younger a lot of the times, like people around my age, uh, that are younger, that don't really think that it matters right now and just do whatever. They drink, they do drugs, they go to fucking raves and do acid and party all night into fucking 3 a.m. and only get 2 hours of sleep just to party the next day. Things like that. Which I don't think it's really bad to do that when you're young. Like, am I crazy? I think if you do that when you're like, especially if you're in college, because that's really what college is for at the end of the day. It's not really about getting your degree. It's about doing drugs and partying, bro. but yeah, you do stuff like that, and that is true. A lot of people just don't do basic things to take care of themselves sometimes. But like I said, I don't think you should do it at the expense of living your life. I feel like living the life that he lives is very tedious, and it's just too much for me. It's too much. And also, you have to recognize accessibility. The reason why some people aren't able to take care of themselves like they should is because they don't have the accessibility of, like for example, people that live in food deserts, they don't really have access to proper food, like for meat and fresh meat and veggies and things like that. So of course it's going to be harder for them to take care of themselves. Or people that don't have grocery stores where they live. Like my dad's from a small town. He was from a small town, and they only had one grocery store that was like expensive, and you had to drive like 2 hours to go to Walmart or whatever. So yeah, he says when he's going on about his life and before this, he says, my entire life I was desperate to be free for myself, and I could nearly cry from that because I relate. I do relate to that. I relate to that mental health struggle. I do. I feel like this is the part of the doc that really does humanize him. Seeing his relationship with his son and him being super close with his son. I feel like it's reaching a toxic codependency level, but it's still something that a lot of people can relate to. A lot of people try to free themselves from loneliness through their kids, and it could become to a point where it becomes unhealthy. But I relate to this. I feel like this is the part that did humanize him a bit, because a lot of people can relate to this. A lot of people can relate to feeling lonely in their lives, even when they're supposed to be living the dream and living the happy life that's supposed to be with you being married, especially as a man, you being married and being the provider, having a job, being able to provide for your family, having your wife and kids, and having this community in the church. You feel like you're supposed to feel happy, but you don't. And I feel like for men specifically, they tend to reject the idea of talking to anyone about these problems, especially when it comes to being super religious, because religion as well overall rejects the idea of mental health issues, the idea of getting help for them, and just saying that you should just pray them away, even though it clearly does nothing. Uh, and these people become isolated and they feel like they can't talk to anybody. You have all this community around you, but you don't have anyone to talk to about your issues, and that's really upsetting. That can really fuck with you mentally. it can really further drive you down a dark path, and which happened to him because he was suicidal. Then he talks a little about his daily life, and he says he says it quotes a guaranteed fight with my partner, meaning that fighting was just a regular thing for them. And it's sad that some people think this is normal. I feel like a lot of straight couples think that this is normal. I think it's a normal thing to constantly fight with your partner, and it's not. It's not a normal thing at all, and it's a bad example. It's bad for yourself, for yourselves, but also for your kids to see that too. Then he was like, growing up, Mormon gave him answers to his existence. And I think that's something that a lot of people in religion, that's what happens to them. They look at religion as something that gives them the answers to life. And it kind of keeps them from being existential in a way. They feel like they have this religion that, well, especially with Mormonism, because Mormonism has a pretty significant effect on how you go about your regular, like, day-to-day life. And so it gives you this answer on how to live, and how if you live like this, you don't have to worry about death, because in death you'll go to heaven, and you don't have to worry about this. This gives you all the answers. And he has this other quote again about not wanting to live in reality. He says, "I didn't want consciousness at all." And again, I felt that in my life. I felt moments in my life where I just wanted to escape, and I just wish I couldn't. I wasn't alive in reality, and not necessarily in a suicidal way, but in a way of I just wish I didn't know what was going on in reality. I wish I could be an autopilot, which again is why people do drugs. I've never done drugs. I mean, I drink some alcohol, but I've never done like hard drugs or drinking like I blackout drunk or anything. But that's something that a lot of people do because they don't want to be conscious in reality, so they take drugs so they can go on autopilot and they don't have to live in real life. And it's unfortunate. And he said my mind was a vicious storm, and removing my mind was the best thing I've ever did. And I disagree. I think you should have went to therapy. I think therapy is a great option, you guys. You have to remember that therapy is an option. I understand that some people can't afford it, but this dude definitely fucking can. He's a multi-millionaire. He can afford to go to therapy. But like I said, men will do anything to go to therapy. They will do anything but talk about their problems, and it's very sad. It's very sad, honestly, because it affects not only themselves but their relationships around them and how they treat and interact with other people. A lot of the time, they refuse to acknowledge their issues. It does come from the patriarchy and the fact that men are encouraged to not talk about their emotions, and that's why so many men commit suicide, and like especially in violent ways that are more likely to be successful than when women do it. So then he says, leaving Mormonism shattered his family because he doesn't talk to his kids he doesn't talk to his kids anymore. He only talks to Talmage. He doesn't talk to his other children. Uh, and Talmage was feeling like he started questioning. I think he was at like a camp. He said he was at a camp, like a Mormon camp, and he talked about a journal he had there where he wasn't really doing what he was supposed to do, but he was started questioning it, just like his father did. And he was able to talk to his father about this, and that's why he got more closer. And he even says later that nobody understands me like he does. And I do think that's kind of sweet, I think it's good to have that relationship with your kid. Have your kid have this ability to be able to talk to you about anything. And there's a part where him and his son are working out, and he's like speaking about him kind of like in a very in an envious way, where he's like doing I forgot it was called reverse crunches. I think that's what these are called. And he says to Talmage, he's like, that's art. And he says Talmage is kind of the perfect specimen. That's so weird, man. Like it's kind of giving emotional incest. It's kind of giving the substance a little bit. I not to make a like a pretty recent reference, but it's kind of giving the substance. Like to me, it's kind of giving the substance. Like it's kind that's what like it's like he wishes he was his son. Like he's kind of jealous of him. And it doesn't help that his son looks exactly like him too. but yeah, it's just weird. That's such a weird thing to say about your child. Like, and his son is very fit. His son is attractive. He's fit. But like that's weird. That's your son. You know? Um like I said, his relationship with his son is weird. Like he calls him his best friend. And I'm not saying that I guess that's not necessarily that weird. Because some people do see their kids when their kids get older as their best friend, but that's your child. You need to find friends your own age. You need to find other people to be your friends. Like that's your kid. You shouldn't be this codependent on your child. It's weird. But anyway, some of the practices Brian does can be dangerous. Um, he takes an immunosuppressant, which can be dangerous because it could have rejuvenating effects, and it's been tested on rats. But this doctor was like, he was like, I don't think he should do that. Um, and you don't know, like, you can't tell what stuff is working and what isn't because he's taking them all at the same time, taking hundreds of different pills. You don't know which ones are actually working and which ones aren't. That's the thing. Because you're taking, like he says, he's taking hundreds of different interventions, makes it hard which ones are working, to see which ones are working and which ones aren't. That's the issue, is that this isn't science. I don't know if he says it right at this point, but I know in the doc he says this isn't science. Like, this isn't beneficial to science at all, which is true because he's just doing this to himself. It doesn't help anybody, and also he doesn't even know which stuff is working and which one isn't because he's doing it all at once like this. So it doesn't help anyone, not really, because he tries to push this message that this is so helpful for everybody, but it's not. This stuff isn't accessible to everyone. It's just to you because you're rich and you're able to do all this and you have all the fucking free time to do this shit. But nobody else, no, regular people can't do this. This isn't helpful to anyone. Then even there was this doctor or scientist. I keep saying doctor or scientist. I think it said this dude was a scientist. I forgot what his name, but he tweeted at Brian that he found out that he was taking something called metformin. I don't know what it's for. It's some sort of medication or pill or whatever. And he said, "How about you use some money and invest it into a trial, into doing test trials for this to see if it actually works for what you think it works for. Like, can you use your money to help use this for science, to help do scientific trials so we can see what this actually helps with?" And he blocked them. Like, that says enough for me. That just says everything to me, because why wouldn't you want to do that to see if this is legit? Why wouldn't you want to help do trials to see if this is legit? So that's weird. That's a weird thing to do. Like, why would he block? Like, anyways, um, yeah, and there was a dude in there that was saying it's not science, it's just attention. Like, he gets a lot of attention off of this, but like, there's no real science behind this because you're just doing this all for yourself. And a lot of the stuff you're doing isn't even proven to help with the things you think it does. It's not science. Yeah, it's cool you get a lot of attention from this, but like, what is even? It doesn't really do anything for the rest of us. So he has his products that he sells. There's like a montage where they have a bunch of people trying the olive oil, like, straight up, which I don't know what is the point of that. Isn't it just gonna taste like olive oil? And also, who drinks straight up olive oil? Taken olive oil shots, but it was with olive oil and like lemon juice and cayenne pepper, just for like something in the morning to like clean up my liver. But just drinking straight olive oil, just to like taste it because you got the product. What does that do though? How do you taste the difference between regular olive oil and like the one that he sells that's like ultra fucking organic, straight out the olive's anus? Like, what's the difference? Anyways, and Talmadge mentions that he wants a girlfriend, which I want to use this moment to caveat the fact that his father posted on, I don't know if it was, I think it was on Blue Sky or Twitter. It was on one of those things where he measures his son's erections, which is fucking weird. Like, that, now that's too much. Okay, like, that's no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And how much acts like this stuff is normal, and that's just weird. I hope at college he has the most normal fucking experience ever. I hope he goes balls to the wall. But and he mentioned wanting a girlfriend. It's like, imagine seeing that. Imagine going to school with him and seeing that on social media, seeing his data for his erections. That's weird. That's fucking weird, bro. Yeah, and I said at this point, he's clearly very close to his son, maybe too close, seems codependent. Exactly. Straight to the point. Okay, so we get to the stealing the blood part, where you have the whole thing that also a big thing that came out of this was him getting plasma from his son, and so he did it to where he gets plasma from his son, and then he gives plasma to his dad, and his dad talked about how he started like losing his memory because he's an older man, obviously. He started losing his memory. He started writing down paragraphs that didn't make any sense, and so he called up Brian and was like, "Hey, do you have any like things that you can help me with this?" And he was able to reconnect with his father through doing this. And they do a little 3 generation photo shoot with them. I think it's kind of weird, but that's just my opinion of this. Everything in this is weird. It's weird, It's uncanny. It's just it's I don't know. It's kind of giving Black Mirror vibes too. But with his father also went through a path of questioning his religion, but he went down the path of drug abuse, and his dad neglected him. And this situation with him reconnecting through this blood thing was like his way to like kind of I don't know how to I don't know how to explain it. Like kind of better their relationship because he neglected him, and when his dad got arrested, he Brian was the only one that showed up to prison to see his dad. But like I mentioned, he's distant from his other kids, and that really upsets him, obviously. Then he talks about going on dates on Tinder and how he calls himself a bad idea, red flag. If I ever contact the guy and he says some shit like, "You don't want to go out with me, I'm not good," deuces, out that bitch. Uh, basically, how he's tedious, he's annoying, you're gonna hate me. Yeah, okay. Basically, he's too focused on this mission. He doesn't have enough time to really have a relationship. The only real relationship that he focuses on is with his son, which is sad. Again, you need to find friends, you need to get laid. But anyways, but then there's this story about him that people don't talk about much. He cheated and left his ex-girlfriend, her name was Taryn, after she got breast cancer. And there's like a whole lawsuit about this where he basically promised to like take care of her and give her funds because when she was with him, she didn't have a job. Like I said, she was going through breast cancer. She probably didn't have enough money to pay for it, and he offered to like pay for it if she were to sign like this deal or whatever, probably an NDA or something, and she refused to. And he kicked her out of like where they lived or whatever, which is so messed up to do that to someone that you were with and is going through cancer and you cheated on her? Like what the hell? But then a whole lawsuit came from this. I think there was just a settlement, of course. Whatever, rich people can get away with anything, I guess. Um, uh, he says something. Like I said, he calls Talmadge his best friend. He says, "I want to go through multiple timelines with Talmadge," and he says like 100 years isn't enough. And I'm just like, it's unhealthy, man. Like it's great to love your kids. Okay, I'm not saying you shouldn't love your children. All right, I'm not saying that, but it's unhealthy. I think it's unhealthy. I think that it's unhealthy. This is not normal. So he does this thing called gene therapy, which is basically you changing your genes, which is dangerous and it can risk cancer. This is when people talk. A bunch of like three people talk about how they start worrying about him. I think it was his dad. Yeah, he was his assistant. His I forgot who else it was. It was his assistant. It was his assistant, somebody else, and then it was his dad. It probably was his son, and then his dad. And somebody asked his dad something. I think it was would I forgot what it was, but he said, "I stop when I get to the edge of the cliff. I don't go into the abyss. Like I have logic. I stop when I should. When I'm warned to." Basically saying that Brian is kind of flying too close to the sun with this gene therapy shit. It's not even properly regulated. Isn't even approved in the U.S. to do. They literally have to go to Honduras to do it because there's less regulation. It's not proven to be safe or effective, which is obviously dangerous. Too much, too much. His dad talked about at a point where Brian, when he was younger, literally wanted to be Joseph Smith, wanted to Mormonism founder, prophetic like founder or whatever the hell, which kind of gives like I want to be like Jesus, which is crazy. And there's a point where he's at this. I think this was at the gene therapy thing where it was somewhere where they were by a pool and they show him like walking on water, and it's like okay, so we're getting to God complex level. Uh, and then he tweeted something. Jesus has had 2,000 years, and I've seen no evidence. I've done more in 2 years, plus I can have premarital sex, which I'll admit is funny. I'll admit that is funny. I think that's hilarious, and I think that is something I would say. That's really fucking funny. Of course, people didn't like when he said that because you know how Bible thumpers are. But that's really funny. That's really funny. Talmud Jesus as a cult. He said if it was like something with with my friends and their dad, I would see it like their dad is in a cult or starting a cult. And he was like, yeah, this is like basically a cult. But he was like, it's not a bad thing. And I was like, okay, let's see what you think when you get older. Anyways, and you get more influence in your life. And they mentioned a part about how the healthcare system is bad, but it's not bad because we don't know the things that we need to be healthier. Like we know the stuff that we need to do to be healthier. People just can't fucking afford it. That's the problem. It's because of capitalism. That's why the healthcare system is awful. That's why. It's not because people don't know what's good for them. Then they're getting ready to send Thomas to college. They're going send Thomas to college. They're going in. They go to different places to get stuff. Like they go to IKEA and they go to Target. And in the middle of Target, he breaks down and he starts bawling his eyes out because his son is leaving, and it's hard for him. And because it's funny because some mentions like that something about his having no emotions thing, which again, typical man thing to think it's okay to go around acting like you don't have any emotions. And that's what happens when you ball up stuff. You start to cry and break down. It's sad because he's so attached to him, but now he's gonna be alone again because his son's gonna be off. And I imagine that is hard. I mean, anybody cries when their kid goes off to college, but I feel like for him it's different because of the codependency. And then we see Talmadge go to college. He goes to college in Chicago, and they go to his dorm. His assistant Kate is there, and they're setting up everything. And he's like hugging him again. He's like, "I love you," and all that. And then we get to what he's doing after it skips 4 months, and he starts these "Don't Die" hikes, which is awful name. He starts these hikes where they get together, people with a bunch of people. It started off with was only I think he tweeted out about going to hiking and saying if he wanted to come with him, and it was like 11 people. But then now it's like over 400 people together on hiking, and they even have people in other countries doing them, like in France and in Belgium, which is crazy. It is giving cult. It definitely is giving cult, and that's basically where it ends. But that was a documentary. I think it was interesting. It was very interesting. I will admit that I think it was entertaining. I think it's crazy looking into how people can become so obsessed with one thing, and because extremes in any way is bad. You know, you may do things that you see as healthy, but there is still a limit to that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't care about your health, because you should. Because there would be a lot of dietary things I would do differently if I was super wealthy, obviously. But I wouldn't do it to this extent. I think it's too much. Like I said, I think there's a bit of OCD, a bit of orthorexia. And you know what? I'm not a psychologist. Okay, I'm not like an expert at mental health issues. I'm just talking about the vibes, vibes. I'm thinking about the vibes that it's giving off, and that's what it's giving me. I think this is what happens to someone when they don't have any more structure in their life, because more, like I said, Mormonism is a religion that is very latched on to how you act in your day to day, and that creates a structure for you. And when you lose that structure, you can go down a downward spiral. And this was his spiral. Uh, this is his spiral, him spiraling into being like, well, I'm just gonna shut off my mind now. And with the depression, like I said, and the suicidal thoughts, I'm gonna shut off my mind now, and I'm just gonna do all this other stuff and focus on this because I can't think about life and think about the fact that I don't know what's gonna happen after I die, and think about the fact that I don't talk to half of my family anymore. And you know what I mean? It's sad. If any, bottom line, it's sad. It's very sad. Um, I think that, but at the same time, he is using this to sell products, and of course that's not surprising. But of course, it isn't going to have the same effect. People aren't. Yeah, people can take your protein powder and the pills and the fucking extra virgin organic olive oil, but they don't have everything that you have. They don't have the red lamp. They don't have the fake sun lamp. They don't have the red light therapy, the hearing therapy, the 135 pills you take every day, the fucking green slop. Actually, they might have that on there, maybe some way. I don't know. Maybe some way they have that on there. They don't have all the free time that takes that takes into into having a tedious routine like this. Because that's something that people also don't think about when it comes to living like super healthy life, is that it can be tedious and it can be time consuming. Like for example, I would love to be vegan. Okay, but it takes a lot of prep, especially people that are raw vegans, I mean they barely eat anything that's cooked. It takes a lot of prep time. It does. It really does take a lot of prep time. And something like this, it's even ultra like takes a lot of prep and takes a lot of doing this on certain times, keeping up with schedules. It's not everyone. People can't do that. Regular civilians can't do that, and that's really the thing is accessibility. Um, but I think that's pretty much it. I think this was interesting. It was an interesting watch. It's on Netflix, but I think this is crazy. I don't think anyone can live forever. We will all die eventually. We will. Anyways, but thank you guys for watching, and that's it.